what is the number one question you get asked?
Easily, my friend. The question that I get all the freaking time is, Daniel, what should I do? The saying, I don't know what to do, I am a huge believer, stems from a deeper, I don't know who I am.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Concept Podcasts. I'm your host, Amir Victor, and here at the Concept Podcast, like you know, we discuss topics that we live by and concepts that we live by on a daily basis to live the life that we desire. And today's episode is extremely special because we have Danial Mirsajedin. Hello, Daniel. Thanks for joining us, and it's a pleasure having you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Amir. Thank you very much, man. I'm excited.
You. So if you haven't just saw Daniel before or just listened to his wise words, I would definitely encourage you to go and check him out. Daniel Teaches Experience. He's the founder of the Daniel Teaches Experience, and this is where motivational speaking meets psychology, and I love it. And in preparation for this episode, I've been listening and consuming all his content, and he is one of a kind, and you would really love it. And Daniel, just for me, I want to tell you that what I love the most about your podcast is that it's simple and that it has examples that I can actually use and relate to in the day to day, and it, it's just clicks, and I love that, and I recommend anyone who wants to go into the journey of self-help and have self-awareness that to check your content out.
I really appreciate it, Amir. Thank you very much, man, from the bottom of my heart, man. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So just having the intro, I would first start by asking you to take us a little back to 2015 or 2016, back when everything started, or when you started your journey of self-awareness and improvement. If I'm not mistaken, I think I got the year correct. Was it 2015, 2016?
It was closer to the end of 2016, mid of 2016, end of 2016. Yeah, yeah, totally, man. Well done, my friend. You've done your research. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I Yeah, so brilliant. So just for the people listening and the people watching, and for yourself, Amir, I remember I was in high school, and I basically, before getting into self improvement and self development, I would never read on my own. Just reading was not something that I enjoyed. I did not look into motivational stuff. It just, why, right? You just play video games all day. Long story short, I ended up coming across this book called The Go Giver, and this was recommended to me by a coworker of mine at work. He said, Daniel, give this book a read. You might like it. And basically, The Go Giver was a book a lot about networking and giving to people, and the benefits of just becoming a better person through your surroundings, to the people who are around you, right? So let's say it was a very more business like book. So let's say, if you have a bunch of money but don't have an idea, and then you meet someone who has an idea, you guys can work together. Then you meet a marketer, all that stuff. But basically, I read that book, and I'm like, this is so cool. And I'm like, what other books are there kind of in this realm, but that are more focused on, let's say, the person themselves, like reflection, and if you want to get into like spiritual or habits, productivity. And the next thing you know, man, I just keep reading book after book after book, and each one is better than the last. And I'm like, this is incredible. And I remember being in high school, I swear to you, man, and I was like, man, if there was a class called self-improvement or self-development, that's the class I want to take. That's what I want to major in. I swear to you. But I was like, it's not there. Like, it doesn't exist. And then I took a psychology class in high school, and I realized that there was one part of psychology that has the biggest overlap with self-improvement, and that is positive psychology. Positive psychology is the branch that focuses on the healthy individuals. So let's say, Amir, if me and you are going to go do a public speaking presentation, and if I feel super anxious, but you feel fine, a lot of psychologists have said asking me why I feel anxious is not a great question. We know why I feel anxious. I'm going to go up there. People are going to judge me. There might be strangers. I might, get rejected by people. People are going to laugh at me. The real question is, Amir, why aren't you nervous? Right? And that's the idea of positive psychology. Let's focus on the positive individual and how they can improve. Long story short, man, you read a bunch of these books. I start studying psychology in university. I'm like, this is incredible. I find, the Gary Vaynerchuk's of the world, the John C. Maxwell's, the Darren Hardys, productivity, habits. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. I know that you're there with me. I read this stuff and I'm like, this is incredible. And then, funny thing, I didn't have social media until last year. Until last year in the summer, I was a guy. I was like, no man, why do I need social media for? I don't care, what other people are doing. But it wasn't until last year in the summer I listened to a Gary Vaynerchuk video, and I'm like, wow, so many of these things that I've found in these books, and then I've heard of in lectures or even heard of in YouTube videos. They're so valuable, and I really want people to be aware of them. What if there's one person looking for the exact 2 cents that I just heard the other day? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Videos start and the YouTube starts, the podcast starts, and I've never been happier, my friend. And that, my friend, is the story of Daniel Teaches.
Oh, awesome. So first off, you said the book, the first book was the Go Giver.
The Go Giver, yes, my friend. It was called the Go Giver. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I actually have the cover here. Give me one sec. Let me pull this bad boy up. So yeah, so for the people watching this book looks like this. Red, the Go Giver. It's an interesting book. It's a very, I think the best thing about the book is it's very simple to comprehend. So some of these self-improvement books, they can be a little complex sometimes in their ideas and their terminologies. That can be off-putting for a 16, 17-year-old. But this book, The Go Giver, was a very easy to read. Again, not, I mean, you're only 15, 16, so there's not, what's the word? It's just like a story. Imagine like an educational story.
Absolutely. And when you were talking about the meeting or just start reading the rest of the books, and well, first off, like you mentioned, I initially at the very beginning of my journey of self-improvement, of self-discovery, even I wasn't reading, and I didn't like to read, believe it or not, and I don't believe it now. Whoever I am, the person I am now, I don't believe that I wasn't reading sooner, uh, just because of the way now I plan my reading, and I improve by it, and I learn from it a lot, and I realized that there is no time for reading. I just got hooked, and whenever I get hooked with, after being a teenager and not interested in books at all, and looking at the way I am now, I wouldn't have predicted it, or I wouldn't have imagined how I would be now without reading these books. And if you would see any of my content, if you would just, I want people to read more, because like the saying, yeah, garbage in, garbage out, but it's not just that. I mean, you get to learn from people who are years ahead of you, and not just chronologically, but also ahead of you in terms of business, in terms of financial, in terms of even relationship, even in the happiness. I mean, there are plenty of things, and the more you get to read and learn, and some of it rubs off of you, rubs on you actually, and it gets so much better. So absolutely, I mean, books was the uh, the first step for me in my self improvement and self discovery, and yeah, that's why I'm yeah, and I want everyone to have this gift. And nowadays, with all the libraries, the online libraries, you can literally get a book, whatever book you want, in a click of a button. And yeah, I love.
Totally.
Moving forward to, well, just going in depth with self improvement. I know that you've had a lot of questions on TikTok or YouTube, or I want to touch on what is the number one question you get asked. And I myself, I get asked a lot of questions, but some of them, they're repetitive. So which question is repetitive for you, and what is your answer, so that you can always tell them, listen to that episode, listen to that podcast episode, and it's gonna answer that question. And yeah, the top of your head doesn't have to be anything specific. Just yeah. Hmm.
as soon as you asked that question, which was a really good question to me, I exactly knew what it was. Like, it, boom, I was like, this is the one, man. This is the one. But as soon as I answer, Amir, I would love to hear yours too, okay?
Absolutely.
So easily, my friend, the answer, the question that I get all the freaking time is, Daniel, what should I do? Daniel, what should I study? What should I major in? Right? What should I go in? Like, what kind of career do I pick out? And my answer is always, and I've made so many videos about this, and I'll keep making videos about them, is like, dude, man, I keep finding different ways to say the same thing. So I'm drawing the same picture. I'm just using different colors every time to try to, make it stick. But the best thing that I can say is, the saying, I don't know what to do, I am a huge believer, stems from a deeper, I don't know who I am. See, I believe when you figure out who you are, your subconscious beliefs, when you figure out what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, right? Do you enjoy anything from? Do you like working in a team? Do you like working behind a desk? Do you like working with people? Do you like working by yourself? Do you like leading a team? Do you like working with technology? What are your thoughts on speaking on stage? What are your thoughts on working with your hands? So there's so many things, and I always tell people, I'm like, for me to just tell you, Amir, hey, Amir, you should go be a whatever, right? A philosophist or a philosopher or a doctor or an engineer. It's like I feel like I can't do that unless I meet you. We have a good, in deep discussion for anywhere between an hour to an hour and a half. And even then, I could possibly give you a suggestion to something that you might like. Right. So I can't even say concrete, but my biggest answer is like, dude, in order for me to tell you what you have to do, I have to know who you are. As in, you have to know who you are, right? You got to think about your strengths and your weaknesses. I always go back to this. People are like, Daniel, you have to get what is a good job? And in my head, I'm like, anything that involves public speaking is a good job, right? Because I love public speaking. But is it a good job for the guy who's afraid of public speaking? Do you know what I mean? So it's not right for me to tell you, Amir, what your right job is. So that's what I always say. I'm like, hey man, we have to sit down. We have to talk like this, so we can at least get to the forefront of, what kind of a desire do you want out of life, and who are you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So that is easily, man, hands down, the most asked about question I get. How about yourself? Or what do you think about that? And then how about yourself?
First, just the fact that it shows that you're a psychology whiz, not just psychology student.
Thank you, brother.
The main question that I think everyone, including myself, are asking ourselves, just or need to ask ourselves. Maybe I was lucky. You were lucky as well. The fact that or the fact that you were able to answer or question yourself that. And yes, the number one question is, who am I? And I think from my perspective, that question is not just it's not a one set in stone thing. It's not, yes, I am a public speaker and that's it. No, I know that in 2 years now I know who I am, but in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm giving myself the flexibility to be whoever I want to be then, and not just wait or just stick to whatever I decided it would be. And me being a perfectionist, I always had an idea in mind and I must do it. And if I didn't do it, or if there is actually an open door, something better even than public speaking. But because I had decided that I'm going to be a public speaker, I just let go of that door, just move on and not take advantage of the opportunity. So I would say, know who you are. Absolutely. I love it. And the second thing would be to not be as strict with yourself, or not be as inflexible as possible. So that's what I'm thinking, at least. So I love that.
It's good, man. Let's get be open-minded. Good. Okay.
And all right, for me,
What's the question you get most often?
the question I get most asked often is, I get a lot of confidence questions. How can I be more confident? Or, and just something that I would tell everyone, and I usually respond to them with that, is they usually tell me I am either I have low confidence, or I am weak, or I am I'm confused, or I don't know. And I tell them the code that I had just found out is whatever follows your I am, or whatever follows your I follows you. So if you say I am I am confident, you will be confident. But if you say I'm confused, or I don't know, or I don't know, whatever, I'm lazy, I love it when people say that, because they can easily say it. They can easily change it. When you change your I am, or whatever follows your I, and you will change. It's not as easy. I know I'm not gonna make it, you can change, like, just change a word or change a phrase and you're gonna change your life. No, but it starts there. It's a beginning. It starts there. If someone is telling me I am lazy and I don't know what to do, all right, so does that mean that if I tell you what to do, will you do it? No, because you think you're lazy. Right? So first off, change that.
100% right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the number one question. And it's also related to who I am. And I think, and you talk about passion as well, and the power of finding your passion. And I believe that anyone who finds his passion, or knows what his passion is he gets completely more confident. He has more clarity. He at least is going somewhere. He's heading somewhere. Doesn't mean that he's gonna just not change or pivot or try something else. No, but at least he's going. He has a reason to wake up in the morning. And if you don't, it's gonna be much harder. You're gonna find addictive habits, or you're gonna find just lazy habits, or just gonna scroll through social media aimlessly. And yeah,
You're right, man.
what do you think about? Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, you were gonna ask me what I thought about like the question.
No, I was gonna ask you something else, but yeah, what do you think? Actually, other questions that get asked to you, or what do you think of that in general? What follows your I am?
Man, yeah, I'm so happy that you came to that conclusion, Amir, because I could not agree more, man. I think people underestimate the power of thoughts, right, and the power of beliefs. And I couldn't agree more. Like, easily the greatest quote I've ever heard in my life was, "You are what you think you are," by Earl Nightingale. And it's like, "Oh, Daniel, I'm shy." Like, okay. Well, Daniel, I'm confident. Okay. Like, you are what you think you are, man. Like, you totally. But people look at you and you're like, Daniel, it's not that easy. Well, it can take more time, but you're 1,000% right, man. The mindset is the first step. You just have to convince yourself. So totally, I completely agree, my friend. I completely agree.
Yeah, awesome. So in terms of the you mentioned that the psychology, you mentioned about the psychology and biology behind self improvement, and that is something that intrigued me a lot. And I know about the psychology, but I want to know more about biology and genetics, because I've been even dealing with doctors, and trying to help doctors, or talking with them in general conversations. Some of them conventional, they have the conventional belief that genetics determines 80% or 90% of whatever you are, and genetics cannot be changed. And yeah, where do you stand on that?
So, me, my friend, to answer the first question about just like biology and genetics in general, my friend, I want to be totally honest. I don't have the biggest view in biology. I do know some friends of mine that are doing degrees that are almost called biopsych. So it's literally 50% psychology, 50% biology. The area of psychology that really gets into the bio is, yeah, have you heard of that before? Biopsych?
I haven't.
No, it's interesting. It's like for those people who are really big on like the sciencey and getting in terms of like the neurons and like anything from like muscle memory to like how light reflects off of our eyes. It's interesting. It's interesting stuff. But yeah, man, it's undeniably connected. Biology and psychology. When you talk about, the biggest reason that I really like to shed a little bit of light on biology is that you read a lot of the self-improvement books, and they talk about, oh, exercise makes you feel better, or oh, this is how to change a habit. But if you know the little bit of biology behind it, you realize that, for example, let's say if you smoke cigarettes, a cigarette is a stimulant, right? And there's certain hormones that can produce when you smoke a cigarette. But then when you realize, you're like, okay, well, what else is a stimulant? Can I downgrade? What if we substitute cigarettes with a coffee? Because a coffee is also a stimulant. It's not as harmful. And then what if we substitute with a coffee with going out for a run? So I think in that sense, man, just know a little bit about, for example, there's a hormone we get told a lot about, serotonin. Now, in the media world, they love to just push one hormone down your throat. They go, hey, man, this is what causes depression. It's this one thing. When in reality, it's huge, it's broad. We still don't know everything. But one thing I can tell the listeners and whoever's watching is that there's a hormone in our bodies, or a neurotransmitter specifically, that is heavily linked with our mood. So studies have shown that when we are low in serotonin, we are more likely to be grouchy, to be um, grumpy, to overreact to little things. Like, someone does something little and like you just react a lot harsher than you should. You're not mad at them, me putting my water bottle here instead of here. It's just that there's something else going on. So then you say, well, Amir, how do we increase our serotonin, right? That can be anything from listening to music that you love, exercising, and just a bunch of other things, man, that are super, even sort of eating, right? Just eating habits, eating the right things. But like exercise is unbelievably linked to psychology and feeling good, your immune system, not getting sick, not to talk about the benefits it has on your heart, on your lungs, on your blood circulation. So psychology and biology are really linked together. I know that was a super long answer, but
No, I love it. That's why we're here.
yeah, awesome, man. Awesome, awesome. See, the genetics are interesting for me, Amir, because in the school that I go to, they talk a lot about it being almost 50-50, or maybe 60-40, depending on who you ask. There's a lot of people that say, hey, man, your genetics are your genetics, right? You are who you are, and it doesn't matter what happens in life. There's a lot of other people that go, it's 50% your genetics, but another 50% is your environment, is the five people who, you're closest to in life, is, are you growing up in a kind of, like in poverty in a sense, right? Are you growing up when you're financially stable? What is your upbringing like? What sort of challenges do you face? What sort of struggles do you face? And the general consensus that I've heard is that it's a mixture between the genetics that you already have, that you're yourself, and the environment that you grew up in. Now, could it be 70-30 for one side? To be honest, Amir, I'm not sure. But if I would have to bet money on it, I would say that both of them are involved: the environment and our own genetic makeup.
And from me, my perspective about genetics, I think it is a factor. It is definitely a factor. It's a start. It's where everything you base on, or just whatever you are, is, yes, it is genetics. But also, like you said, I mean, what I would add is there is biogenetics as well, and there is I think the term, the autogenetics, which I haven't went in depth in it, but autogenetics says that you can actually start changing your genetics, or at least by being giving it a different stimulus, or either just improve repetition, or just being in a different environment, you would allow your genetics to improve and either change or shift based on that. So it aligns with what you're saying as well. So like you mentioned, I've checked a lot about biohacking, biogenetics, but I haven't checked bioscience for some reason, and I am going to do that for sure.
Cool, man. Cool. There's so much out there, man. There's so much out there to learn.
And just in terms of repetition, what is your daily routine, if you don't mind me asking? Given that it's
Not at all. Not at all. Of course, man. Then I'd love to hear yours.
absolutely, I will.
Sure, my friend, for sure. So my daily routine at the moment, my friend, is so we'll wake up. Generally, if I can pick any time, I love 8 in the morning. 8 in the morning is a good balance between, it's not 6 in the morning, but it's not 10 in the morning. So we usually get up, wash our face, do all that good stuff, sit down, have a breakfast. I've been a lot more, what's the word, mindful of what I'm eating nowadays. I'm not on a diet. Diets aren't for me. But, if I can, I'll try to get some protein in the form of an egg, or fat in the form of an avocado. That's my favorite. Avocado, eggs, sort of a mixture on whole grain bread. So we'll have some breakfast. And then one of the first things I'll do is actually I'll upload on TikTok. I'll do at least one video. When I was a younger man, in my younger days, I would upload like a lot more on TikTok, like 3 to 5 videos a day, but it depends on the day, right? So, but every day, Amir, no matter what, eat breakfast, upload on TikTok, work out, because man, I notice when I don't work out, and that goes back to our serotonin talk, I can get really weird, man. Like I don't feel good. I feel irritated and I feel grumpy and I don't know what's up. So exactly, exactly. So it's TikTok, right? Eat breakfast, TikTok, work out. And then after that, my friend, my go-tos, depending on what'll happen in the day, depending on what's coming up, I usually just try to deal with the things that are more urgent, right? So, I mean, that could be as little as if people are thinking, wow, he's got big business meetings. No, man, urgent could just mean I have to do the laundry, like just clean up the place or just, buy groceries. But yeah, if I have my own time afterwards, I love to get some reading in. So I always have books that I'm reading. Um, and then what else? Those are the things that are really set. I really try to set a good morning routine with the TikTok and the working out and the reading, and then I let the day kind of be adapted depending on what happens.
I love that. And actually,
Basically, my morning routine.
awesome. And based on just the reading, do you prefer to read at night or in the morning?
I myself, I'm a morning person because when I read, I also like to take notes, and then when I go to bed, I don't find it super comfortable to have like the notebook in there, but I can understand both. How about yourself?
Actually, yeah, I'm asking because I've learned something that I also prefer to read in the morning, although not every day is possible. But I make sure to make sure whenever I'm reading, I am absolutely attentive and I have energy and focus because in some of my days I started reading at night and I found that my reading speed just plummeted and I wasn't reading as and I was rereading. I wasn't was wasn't as well efficient, you would say, in reading as well. So I found that reading when I'm most attentive, when I have energy, and when I'm really can consume all the content and just remember it, and not just reading for the sake of reading. I found that reading in the morning is actually much more efficient, and yeah, it improved my speeding read or my speed reading as well.
Good, 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 good.
My morning routine, just yeah, replying to you. My morning routine, I wake up in the morning, usually by 6. Sometimes I shifted the routine a couple of times. So believe it or not, sometimes I was waking at 4, but currently I'm not doing that.
Wow.
If you want to read, you read the 5 a.m. book club. That's when I really got hooked into the 4 a.m. kind of thing. But generally now what I do is wake up at 6, do some meditation, some breathing techniques, doing some priming, just yeah, to make sure that I'm grateful, setting up the day, giving myself just not being reactive, being proactive, all that good stuff. And after just doing my breathing and techniques, I state or I just write down what I want to do, 3 things that I want to do and accomplish today if I haven't wrote it down the day before. And after I do that, I just start after meditation, all of this. I fast, so I don't take breakfast until 10 a.m. Sometimes 11, sometimes 12. It depends. Usually 16 hours, 16/8. Maybe you've heard of the 16/8.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That and before that I start working as well, probably post on TikTok, and just go on with the rest of my day doing some work. And some days I work out in the very early morning, so after my meditation, all of that, I work out and then start working. Or sometimes I work at noon, I take a break and work out, and then continue on with the day. And I'm usually shifting a lot. Before I used to, stick to my routine for years, but now I'm more flexible and I'm just giving myself time to exercise and practice and be flexible to just change the routine and all of that. So that's mainly it. Yeah,
Man, good, good, good. Of course, because we're constantly changing, right? We're constantly adapting and evolving, trying new things. So good, it's a good way to go.
absolutely. Um, so I had another question for you because I was really intrigued and I loved it. You mentioned change happens slowly, and I love that. And second thing that I want to comment on is, to you, what is the best way to give advice and best ways to receive advice? Because you touched upon that, and I wanted just to listen more to your thinking about it. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Amir, if it's all right with you, man, I want to turn the gun around. I want you to answer your own questions first, and then I'll give my answers.
Cool. So the best way to give advice is not to give advice, for me at least. It's to give your opinion, because whenever you're giving advice, it has a way of saying, hey, you should do this and this and this, and if you don't do it, that's my advice. If you don't do it, then we're not good. You're not listening to what I'm saying. But if you give your opinion, it's all good. If you want to take it, that's fine. If you don't want to take it, that's also fine. And that is the best way to give advice. At least that's how I do it. But the best way to receive advice is also always being flexible and believing that the person in front of you, he wants he has the best of interest for you, and he wants all the best for you. And trying to listen to the not the advice, but rather the thing that you can improve, or the thing that you can actually implement. If that's an advice, that's for me at least. I try to be more receptive, try to really understand first, because usually, and like you mentioned that as well in the podcast, is that you usually don't really understand what the other person is saying, or you have an idea of what the other person is saying, but you don't know what it is, and you're just assuming, and you're replying based on your assumption, and that is not always the case, and you just so yeah, that's my thing, just trying to understand exactly what the advice is, instead of just going with a roller coaster of just a conversation. So yeah.
Love it, man. Love it. It's unbelievable, Amir, how similar we think, man.
Yeah, I told you. I told you at the beginning before we started the.
You did, brother. You did. You did. You did. You did. No, it's cool, man. It's really cool. Just my 2 cents on that. On the first of all, the receiving advice. I completely agree, man. I think it's so important to just be an attentive listener. I think it's also important to be open-minded. If I was just to add on, maybe you're going to hear some things that maybe you've never heard of before, or maybe some things that maybe you didn't believe in prior. And even if you don't understand certain things, it's still important to ask questions and to follow along, because certain things, when you're receiving advice, might not make sense at the very moment, but maybe a few days in, maybe a few weeks in, like, oh, that's why, he said to do that. So this doesn't happen. All right, I understand. So I know I've definitely been in situations of like that too.
So how can we avoid that blind sight that we always have whenever we get an advice and we just, no, that doesn't make sense, and after a couple of weeks, months, years, hopefully not, you get, oh, so that's what they meant.
It's very tough, Amir.
I know, but
Very tough, because I'll be honest, man, I'm easily in that position too. Like I've definitely been in situations where someone tells me something, I'm like, yeah, that's all right. And then I'm sure, a couple months later, I'm like, oh, that's what they were talking about. I think a huge reason is, man, it's just, I wish people were a little bit more open-minded. Or I think people were more open to other answers rather than their own. Like it's not about, hey, figuring out, am I right or is Amir right? It's about figuring out what's true, right? Or what is the truth here? What is the best way to go about this? And again, if I could preach one thing, and I'd love to hear your advice on this, Amir, but I would just say, just try to be open-minded to everything, right? And even, I'm not saying you have to agree with everything or even disagree with everything, but just say, hey, let me think about it. Because let me think about it and I'll get back to you is 1,000 times better than, yeah, right, or yeah, I don't think so. What's the worst that's going to happen? You think about it, you sleep on it, you come back the next day. I think that way you're promoting more logical and rational thinking as opposed to kind of emotional and the spot thinking. What are your thoughts?
absolutely. For me, I think that just being receptive and not trying to prove yourself right or wrong is definitely the way for you to actually improve and really learn. Because if you go into, I'm trying to remember a quote, but I'm not able to remember it, but just that's the conclusion of it is when you go into conversation and you do nothing but speaking, you get out of it with nothing new. You don't get anything new. You don't learn anything. But the more you listen and the more you try to really understand where they're coming from or their perspective, you will come out some well, you learn something new. And yeah, that's what I believe is at least that's what I'm doing now, is trying to understand more, trying not to prove myself right or wrong, and just listen and try to find the truth, not just who's right or wrong. Absolutely, I love that. And yeah, that actually brings me to another thing that I wanted to that I was thinking about when you were talking, which is when you disagree with someone and you want them not to just agree with you, but you want to deliver the message that you want. What do you do in general, given your background and what you're doing, and being a psychology whiz? That's definitely helping you,
For sure.
influencing people, persuasion.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you. I don't want you to over. I feel like you're putting you on this pedestal, and people are gonna be like, "Who is this guy?" And then they look at the podcast, they're like, "Who is this schmuck?"
No, it's not. Absolutely not.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. But just to respond to your question, my friend, the best thing that I've heard was, Daniel, whenever you're getting into a discussion with someone, and I like the word discussion over an argument, because an argument sounds, I'm going to prove, my point and its emotions. A discussion sounds logical and rational, and I'm really going to listen to what you're saying. And I think a few things are really important. Number one is, I apologize for the traffic out there, but
Beware. No worries.
first, list out all the things that you already agree on. So let's say, Amir, me and you, like, let's say there's a whole plan, right? And we agree on A, we agree on B, but we totally disagree on C. The first thing I would do is I would articulate, and I'd say, well, Amir, I'm so glad that we, see eye to eye on A, and that we both see eye to eye on B. And it's this little thing in psychology, when you get someone to say yes, or even to nod their head, they're more likely to say yes later on. So if I go, hey, we both think A is correct, you go, yeah. I go, well, yeah, exactly, exactly. So I think that's a huge one. And I think secondly, my friend, when you really, and it goes back to what you said, Amir, you really said it brilliantly. When you're so receptive and when you listen so well, you should be able to state the other person's points as strong as they can, if not stronger than they can. What happens is people do the opposite. They do the straw man argument. Amir will say, Daniel, let's say for the sake of argument, you have to, I wake up at 6 a.m. And then I'll take your words, I'll twist them, and I'll say, so you're saying anyone who wakes up at 8 a.m. is a failure? Right? That's a straw man. I'm taking your argument, but I'm presenting it in a weaker way. I'm saying do the opposite. Let me take your point and let me prove it stronger than you did. Thus, when I take down that point, it has that much more power to it. So those would be my 2 cents. Really build the other person's argument, like, really, really well. And first of all, name the things that you guys already do agree on, right? Find some common ground, as they say. And I think then when you deliver your point, those are 2 things that might help. Well, what do you think about that, Amir?
For me, I always try to, well, I do the same thing that you just mentioned, which is try to really understand where they're coming from, what is it that they believe, what is their belief about something, and I say it out loud to them, because usually they're talking but they're not saying the belief, they're just expressing their their thoughts, or how, what you should do or act or react, but based on their belief. So I try to identify the belief itself, and usually some of them are subconscious beliefs that they're not even aware of. And when you hit it with them, or just when you just bring it to them, and they're kind of shocked and a bit, just don't like it, so they push back. Of course, now I matured a bit and I became more subtle, and I tried to just find a common ground, and try to understand, and make them feel comfortable. That's my go-to thing, actually. When someone is comfortable and he thinks and feels that you're not trying to prove them wrong, you're not trying to make a big deal out of it. You're just trying to understand, and that you're really listening and understanding what they're saying, and that I am out. I'm looking for the truth and not looking to persuade you into doing something that you don't want. They become more receptive of that. So yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Oh, totally, completely.
So speaking on subconscious beliefs, what's the best way do you think for us to identify our subconscious beliefs? Because they're subconscious and you're not aware, or unconscious, if it makes sense. What do you think of that?
Of course. So, brilliant question, Amir. So, what I'll say before.
So just whenever yeah, whenever you feel that it's a bit overwhelming, just tell me, hey man, I don't know. But just would love.
So I'll just do the eyebrows. I'll do the eyebrows.
Right, cool. I'll take the hint.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome. Good. No, but in all seriousness, though, Amir, man, I'll be completely honest. What I'm saying here, again, just like you said, Amir, right? Your advice is one thing, but it's really just my opinion, right? And my opinion doesn't mean it's a fact, right? It doesn't mean that what I'm saying is true, but this is only what I believe. Could I be wrong? 1,000%. Could it be worthwhile to hear my perspective and add it onto your own and think about it? I think so. I think so. So the way that I would answer that, the way to make someone become aware of their subconscious beliefs, there's a couple of methods. So the one of the biggest reasons I would argue that people go see psychologists and counselors is to bring their subconscious thoughts to their forefront, right? Now, there's several techniques that they can use. One of the most successful techniques is known as cognitive behavioral therapy. And basically, that's exactly what you said to me. That's just making a person aware of their subconscious beliefs. Now, more ways that you hear about, like practical ways that you can get started right now for anyone listening or watching this at home, is, to be honest with you, make a video like this talking. Just start talking, or start writing about what you think you know about yourself. Because there's a famous psychologist, I'm sure everyone's heard of him, Sigmund Freud, who came out with this technique called free association. And this whole psychology idea is famous for, one guy's lying on the couch. Well, doctor, I just feel empty inside, right? And there's a guy like on the back on like a clipboard, like just writing it down. It goes back to his childhood. Like that all comes from the idea of, I want the people to be able to talk without a filter. Because a lot of the time, like you said yourself, Amir, we're saying things, but we're not stating the fact. We're dancing around it, and sometimes we don't know what it is. And I'm a huge believer. There's been so many times, Amir, where in talk, just doing podcasts like this, I say things out loud that I've never even realized before, but that I realize as I say it out loud. As crazy as it sounds, right? Because it's in the subconscious, it's not in the conscious. So we just keep talking, and as I say it, I'm like, whoa, I guess that is why I acted that way. So really, my big thing is I promote any way to articulate your thoughts, whether it's written, just start writing. This is how I feel. It's almost like self-therapeutic, right? Imagine you're your own therapist, you're your own coach, you're your own best friend. Just write, hey, this is how I feel inside. When I went into this situation, I felt really uncomfortable. Why is that, right? Why did I get anxious? And then I am a huge believer that is one way. I'm sure there's other ways. I'm sure there's better ways. But in my own success, in my own opinion, writing it out and making videos like this, even just for yourself, I'm not saying you got to post it anywhere. I think they help tremendously with figuring out why you do what you do when you put away the filters. And it's just purely, you're not even thinking. The words are just flowing.
Absolutely. And when you were saying that, when you say something or write it down and then you say why, or sorry, you say wow. For me, I remember, and I talked about that in one of my episodes, podcast episode, is when I started journaling. Of course, at the very beginning, I wasn't journaling at all. But when I started journaling, I've had many occasions where I just said, after writing something, I would just say, wow, where did that come from? I mean, and that's I really started be I really started believing a lot in journaling and the benefit of journaling and what would it add to you. And definitely one of the ways is that made me understand myself and the thoughts is actually journaling or making videos. I've never thought of making videos as something that might help me, but I definitely agree, because when I started making my own videos, I started realizing that I have different connections that I wasn't aware of, and I was only aware of when I started speaking. And you might people or just regular non people who are not posting on social media, they would do that, maybe have that just that aha moment when they're talking to their best friends, when they're really talking to someone they really trust, and they just blab it all out. They just say whatever is on their head and they just figure out some stuff. And the beauty of what you just said is that you can be your own best friend, and you can actually do that and implement it over and over again, and you would definitely be able to help yourself. And I really want everyone to at least consider this, because it's gonna help you. Because I know a lot of people, they don't like the fact that they might go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, or just talking to a professional, or just having a someone who would talk to. And if you're not comfortable doing that, you can just be your own psychologist. At least start understanding yourself, and start writing down what are your thoughts. And the more you write it, the more you understand about yourself. And yeah, I love it. Love that.
I agree, man. It's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. If you are on your own, if you want to do something, and then again, it depends on the severity of how you feel. Like if you're like ourselves, if you're just looking for a little bit of purpose and you want to better your habits, you can totally work on yourself, or even getting a life coach. But then when you start getting to places where you don't want to get out of bed, and I mean you don't just feel sad, but like you have the symptoms that are of a person who's depressed. That's when you should seek the higher ups, right? The clinical psychologists and those.
Absolutely, you're spot on. And definitely, if you're having any depression, or if you have any problems that you're not able to fix it on your own, or you're not able to at least talk to someone, whether your best friend or someone that you can trust, or any family member, definitely seeking out professional help is extremely important, and there's no shame in that. And it's something that you would just do because you want, and there is a voice deep down inside of you that wants more out of life. And yeah, that's, I believe everyone should, yeah, do that.
Not to get too dark here, Amir, but I just thought of this while you were speaking. The Again, this is gonna take a mad turn. Sorry for anybody listening who is having a super bright day, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm saying this correctly, but in terms of if we're putting men and women together, in terms of who has more successful suicide attempts, who do you think it is, Amir? Men or women?
Interesting. That's
I'm not saying just attempt, but I'm saying successful. Go through with it.
I would say women. That's my just instinct. I don't know why. I don't have a reason for it, but that's my instinct. Well, what did you think first, and now, based on what you know, what do you think it is?
So what I thought of first was, I didn't think it was women first. I did think it was women first. But now again, I hope I'm saying this right. And to be honest, I should have done a little bit more research before saying this, but I'm like 70% confident on this. I believe I finally read somewhere that women attempt more often, but men are more successful when they do. So a woman might do some sort of self harm, but they won't like fully end it. Whereas a man's more likely to end it. And one of the huge contributors to that is when a man and a woman, when they both go through something struggling or something challenging, the first thing that a woman does, or that most women do, and I can't generalize, but statistically speaking, is they tend and befriend. They find a friend, they pour their heart out, they cry, they let it out right then and there, right? That's why we say, oh, women are emotional and women are, it's the hormones. But what does a guy do? He drinks, he smokes, he goes out partying. You suppress it, you suppress those thoughts, right? And you pretend like they're not there. Now, what happens is 1 month goes by. The girl, she's let it all out. She's cried it out. She's done her thing. She's communicated. She's better now. After a month, the guy's like, holy shoot, I partied, I smoked, I drank, and it's still here. I still don't feel good. And it's this lack of ability to communicate, to cry, to be emotional that I believe it's not the only factor, but I do believe it is a huge factor which leads to a higher successful suicide.
Wow, I really love that you bring that up. I didn't know that statistic, and I think that. Well, are you saying that every man should be more emotional and just cry his eyes out?
I think in general, my friend, I think in society we shouldn't, what's the word? We should be a little bit more flexible about the standards that we have for men and women. You know, in the sense of like, dude, like a man doesn't have to be super stoic all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you got to break down at everything, but the perfect example of me is this: it is harder for me to cry and show emotion than to not cry. Like, my default is not giving in. So it's hard for me to show emotion, like when something sad happens, and it sucks because I don't do it. And then I find myself over a period of time, 3, 4, 5 days, not feeling good, right? Because I can't express it. Whenever I get mad, this is the first time I'm saying this on screen. I swear to you, and I don't know if this is good or not. The first thing I do, man, is I wrap up the hands. I go find a heavy bag, and I just, because I exercise. That's all I know, right? When I get upset or when I get sad, I do that. But I've been really working. You're gonna laugh, Amir. I've been trying to cry more. It sounds ridiculous. I know. I've literally been watching movies, and like, Daniel, like, it's okay to open up, like, you, because I really find it hard to open up, man. And I feel like, to be honest with you, I mean, I read a book that's called Tuesdays with Murray, and long story short, it was a gentleman at the end of his life. Have you read it?
Haven't read it, but I saw the movie.
No. Yeah. Oh, there's a movie about it. That's sick. I gotta watch that then. But yeah, man, perfectly. You know, there was just one point of the chapter where the guy goes, you know, he's like, how are you not upset with your quality of life? And he's like, to be honest with you, I've let go. And he goes, how? He goes, there's a time to grieve, and I grieve. I am sad and I cry and I let it all out. And because I do, I'm able to move on. If you don't put it out there, this is his opinion, but I totally believe it. If you don't put it out there, how can you expect to move on? You know, so that's kind of my 2 cents on it, man. So I think people should. I think guys in particular, man. I think guys should show more emotion. Well, what do you think?
I love this, and I love the fact that you brought up the Tuesdays with Maury. It reminds me of, I saw it, I think when I was in high school or something like that, and I love the movie, and I truly believe that expressing your emotion is something. f- Speaking of men in general, is something that by default, like you mentioned, is something that we don't do for some reason, which is, I'm going to ask you about that actually in a couple of minutes. But initially, the default of not wanting to express yourself or not, or thinking that it's macho if you don't cry, just to hold your feelings in, it definitely has a lot of repercussions on your on your health and on your mental health and all of this. And definitely the more you express, the more you let it out, the better you'll become. And I've seen examples of men, middle age, 50, 60, 80, whatever, but the example I'm talking about is 60, who they don't express themselves, and they're healthy, they're eating well, but they have problems with their bodies, either their back pain or stomach aches or just some sort of just a symptom that the general doctor, they're not finding the reason or the root cause behind it, and they usually link it back to your mental health or your emotional stability and how you feel. And maybe you're, because of suppression, I believe that's a belief, my opinion is, when you suppress a lot of things and you suppress it for years, your body starts to, because the mind does not want to state it out loud or does not want to acknowledge it, so the body starts to express it in their own way. And one of the awesome examples that I've learned about is psychological blindness. I've never heard of that before. And in some cases, people get psychologically blind. So their eyes are completely fine. They're completely fine. There's nothing wrong. Everything is working well, but the person cannot actually see. And why is that? Because they usually link it back to a trauma or something like that. And I learned this, I think, when I was 17, 18 years old. And just it blew my mind. And what do you think about that, actually? Do you think have you heard that before? What do you think of that?
Honestly, my friend, I do remember hearing about that, Amir. I remember people who have perfectly fine, like eyes themselves, but it is due to trauma. Or I have heard of so the part of our brain that's responsible for our vision is right at the back of the head. There's a part of the brain called the occipital lobe, and that's the part that's responsible for vision and whatnot. So there are people who've taken like literal head trauma, and they have problems seeing things. Like it's unbelievable. I don't know too much about it, so I don't want to talk too much about it. But if people are interested, I would definitely recommend typing up what's the word, like psychological blindness or damage to the occipital lobe, because it's unbelievable. Like you wouldn't believe it if you didn't see it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that brings back to the suppressing your emotions and all of that. Um, do you have any simple advice on any man or women who's suppressing their emotions because of they don't know why? First off, why is the default that we're suppressing our emotions? Do you know that? As men in general, just
So good. For sure, for sure, for sure. I think definitely genetics play a part. I think societally, especially more for men, play a part. Right? There's a certain role that you got to play. You got to be, tough and emotionless and ready to go and completely rational and logical the entire time. Um, but man, I almost think it's. Let me really think. Let me really think about this one. I almost want to say it's harder.
taking the time to actually think about it. That means you're really thinking
Totally, man. Totally. Because I get into a bad habit.
of your podcast as well.
For sure, man. Because it's so easy to just want to respond. Like, oh, Amir's asking, I have to have the question. Daniel, we're recording. Come on. But when you really take time to think and go, okay, let me really think about what Amir just said, and the first thing that does come to mind, and I, again, this is just I'm just throwing whatever comes to mind. I think it's a little bit of fear. I think it's a little bit of. I think it's easier to suppress something than to deal with. When you go through a trauma of sorts, or for example, there's a sort of therapy called exposure therapy. And the basis of exposure therapy is, you go through sort of a trauma or an assault or just through something, right, where you need to see a therapist. And what they get you to do is they get you to write out exactly what happened descriptively on a piece of paper, whether again it was a sexual assault or whatever happened, the passing of it. Imagine how hard that is. And you have to, or talking to someone, or they'll literally just have to, describe to me exactly what happened, how you felt. Like they're bringing back those emotions, right? So even me thinking about how hard that would be, it's what's the word, it's not very um, complex to figure out why a person would want to avoid those. If you go through trauma, I would think, you just want to make it go away as fast as possible. That's why people learn towards drinking and, not thinking about it and suppressing it. Whereas I think the hard thing is you hear it in the stories of Mia, right? It's like, face your fears, step out of your comfort zone, go into darkness. It's like, dude, those aren't just fancy slogans. There is science behind it. You have to expose yourself to the thing that's, to those emotions. And I think it's hard to do at first, and I think people value the short-term benefit of suppressing it as opposed to facing the emotions and whatever comes with it. But those are just my 2 cents. I could totally be wrong, but that's just what came to mind just now.
Of it. I don't have an answer in mind, but I think absolutely the short, just looking for the short term fix is always a way. And another thing for me is I think that we're just used to it in a way. That's how we saw either our fathers or any idols that we had just acting in a certain way,
Definitely.
all of that, and it helps just and you expect yourself to behave the same way, and that's what causes you to suppress. I know sometimes you want to appear strong and be a leader, and the leader is expected to be calm and collected and all of this. Yes, absolutely. But I also just ask anyone if you're in that situation. I would also tell you to give yourself the time to express that after the when the sea is rough. Yes, you need to be really attentive and you need to know what to do, be a leader, awesome. But after the sea is settled, you just take your time for you to reflect on that and not just continue to suppress it and just express it, and it will make you at least much more calm, and at least it will not suppress any feeling that would on the long term might affect you more than you think. So yeah, thanks for that. Awesome.
it, Amir. Love the example, man. You're right. With the C, you're 1,000% right.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. I actually I have I don't want to I'm just gonna make sure I'm conscious of time, so I'm just gonna ask you if there is anything in specific that you want to tell. If there's a specific message that you want to give out there to the world, whether listeners, someone who's watching this, or someone who having some struggles in their lives, or whatever that struggle is, whether it's financial, emotional, physical, trying to even lose weight, trying to struggling with their relationships, struggling with their studies, struggling with their marriage. What is the message that you would want to tell them?
So the message that I have in mind, and it's blunt and it's upfront, and it might hurt some feelings, but you know what? I don't care because I will happily have people not like me, but tell them what they need to hear. And this is truly what I believe. If there's one thing I could tell to anyone listening and to anyone watching, it's this: there is no Superman, there is no Prince Charming. Take responsibility for your life. Save yourself. Be your own best friend. Be your own coach. Be your own motivator. Help yourself out. Do not wait for things to get better. You have to take the first step for things to get better. Nobody is responsible for your happiness. You have to take the initiative. And when I say take responsibility for your life, I'm not saying don't reach out to counselors or therapists. I believe that reaching out and saying, hey, I need help, whether it's with a life coach to be more productive, whether it's with a therapist to help with a trauma. You reaching out to someone is you taking responsibility. I'm not saying close yourself off, but taking responsibility just means you want your life to be better. All you got to do is just make a call. Hi, like, can I come in this weekend? That on its own, in and of itself, is you taking responsibility for your life and not just waiting for life to happen, not just waiting for someone to show up, because guess what? They won't. You got to go for it. So that's really what I would say. Please take responsibility and just take the first step, no matter how small it may seem.
Love it. I just love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. And another question I would ask you: what is your goal in life? And I know you talk a lot about importance and importance of finding where you want to go and your passion. So what is your goal in life in general? First thing pops in your head.
First thing that popped in my head, honestly, was I want to give. I want to give. Give like there's no tomorrow. Just give. So when I'm not on this earth anymore, we're like, wow, like he really, whether it's through podcast, YouTube. I mean, if it's in my own perfect world, I'd love it to be on a stage, public speaking. But really, my goal in life is to give to as many people as possible and make impacts, on as many people as possible in their lives and in their surroundings. And if I can do that, touring around the world, I think doing it online is amazing. But if there was a way, man, where I could like tour around the world, do like a motivational tour or whatever, that is truly my goal in life, to go around the world making talks, very much like a conversation that we've had here, and just be able to give and be able to impact people's lives. That is my goal, my friend.
And where do you expect you'll be in 2025, 5 years from now?
Oh, 2025, my friend, I'm so excited. There's so many opportunities. By 2025, I will have spoken at several different stages. I will have started my speaking career. I will have started coaching people one on one. Now, whether we want to talk about coaching, whether we want to talk about counseling, it's about taking what we do in podcasts, but now making it specific, right? When I make a video, it's very general and it's great. But imagine, me doing a one on one thing like this for 30 minutes. We can really talk about what does each individual need, right? How can you cater to their unique needs? And yeah, man, reading a bunch more and really doing a lot of what I'm doing now, working out, reading, collaborating with people like yourself. But I mean, like through the freaking roof. Like Amir, in the words of Gary Vee, I haven't even started yet. I swear to God, I have so many things in here, man. I haven't even started yet. 2025, I'll like the movie begins. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so unbelievably excited, man.
I love it. I love it. And if you would allow me to say, in 2025, you will surpass all what you just said. It will be you will complete all of that by 2022, and by 2025 you would be in a completely different place. Listen, I know that you will reach places, and I asked that question because I know, and I want you and all the listeners and all the whoever is watching is to look back at this. This is being recorded in mid 2020. this is what Daniel expected himself to be in 2025, and he's gonna be wherever he is. So look back and see. I'll look forward to it. Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. Me too. And look at who's talking, Amir. Look at who's talking. What's the future got in store for you, my friend? What's going to happen 5 years from now?
I have no idea, to be honest. I have plenty of plans, and in 2025, I believe I would be in a completely different place than where I am now. Just not mentally. I would always constantly grow, but generally, it's not public speaking. Maybe it could be because I know I'm becoming more flexible now. But it would be me being able to help more than 1 million people, and 1 million person, whether virtually, one-on-ones, or just face to face. Yeah, that's my main goal.
Love it, man. Amazing. Amazing. I'm counting on it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Awesome. So before we go, where can people find you, Daniel?
Yes. So if the wonderful listeners and watchers enjoyed and want to see more of Daniel, if my friends, if you go online, if you just type in Danial Teaches, and that's Daniel spelled Danial Teaches, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Facebook, you name it, I'm on it. But if you want to find the podcast, you just have to type in the Danial Teaches Experience, which you can find on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of more other stuff.
Sounds good. And we will also leave all these details in the description below.
Awesome.
And if you haven't already, make sure to go and subscribe to the Concept Podcast and the Breakthrough Power on YouTube. And we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.